Okay, we are doing 1.9, which is with decimals. This means that we're working with both a divisor and a dividend that have decimals. But first, let's look at these examples that they have set up for us at the front. We have 4 divided by 2 is 2. If you look at this, 40 divided by 20 is also 2. And 400 divided by 200 is also 2. The only difference here is we just multiplied both things by 10 to get a 0 after each of them. And this one we multiplied both terms by 100 to get 2 zeros after them. We get the same answer when we work that out. We just have a different number of zeros at the end. So when we look at this first problem, unlock the problem, we're going to see how we can use that. It says Tammy is training for a triathlon. In a triathlon, athletes compete in 3 events: swimming, cycling, and running. She cycled 66.5 miles in 3.5 hours. If she cycled at a constant speed, how far did she cycle in 1 hour? So we're going to go ahead and look at this and estimate first. Now, I know 66.5 is closer to 70 if we were to look for big round numbers, but we want to be able to make sure that they're numbers that we can actually divide. So we're going to use 60 divided by 3 because 3 can easily go into 60 20 times. So there's our estimate. Now, if we look at this as 66.5, we have that decimal of the 66.5 divided by 3.5. I'm going to multiply both of these by 10 so that I can move that decimal over one spot. So what I'm actually saying now is 665 divided by 35. 665 divided by 35. So 35 is going to go into 66 one time. 1 times 35 is 35. I'm going to subtract and I get 31 and bring down that 5. And I'm going to bet, I know that 35 goes into 350 10 times. So I'm going to bet that it goes in 9 times, but let's go ahead and multiply to find out. 9 times 5 is 45. 9 times 3 is 27, plus 4 more is 31. So I get that 315, and when I subtract, I have 0. So that went in 9 times for me. So 665 divided by 35 is 19. So Tammy cycled 19, and we're going to use miles as our label here because that's what she cycled. She cycled 19 miles per hour. All right, with that, let's go ahead and look at example 1, and we're going to see what it's like to divide with 2 decimals. So now I have 17.25 and 5.75. There's 2 decimal spots in this 5.75, so I'm going to move it over. And the same number of times that I move that one over, I'm going to need to move the decimal over for the 17.25. Since I'm moving it over twice, I'm actually multiplying by 100. So I'm saying 575 and 1,725. So when I divide here, I'm going to say 1,725 divided by 575. Now I know this looks like that long division that we did in the first lesson that we loved oh so much, but we are going to still attempt it. I'm going to guess that this is a 3, so I'm going to go ahead and test that out. 575 times 3 and see what we get here. 3 times 5 is 15. 3 times 7 is 21, plus 1 more is 22. 3 times 5 is 15, plus 2 more is 17. So there we go. We have that 1725 3 times. When I subtract, then I have a remainder of 0. So 17.25 divided by 5.75 is going to be the same thing as 1,725 divided by 575. We just got rid of those decimals, so my answer is 3. Let's go ahead and we're going to flip to the next page. We're going to turn to page 57. So let's look at this one. Now I have money for number 2. I don't want to use those money symbols though, the dollar signs, when I'm dividing here. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of those. I just know that my answer when I give it is going to be in money. So here's what I want to point out again. I have a decimal here and 2 decimal spots. So I'm going to have to move it twice, which means this one is going to have to move it twice. I'm going to multiply both of those terms by 100. So I get 135 and I get 1,080. Now I'm working without decimals. I know that 135 does not go into 108. So I'm going to check and see if I can maybe try, we'll multiply by 9 and see what that does. I think I might have to do one less, but we'll test this out anyway. So 9 times 5 is 45. 9 times 3 is 27, plus 4 more is 31. 9 times 1 is 9, plus 3 more is 12. So looks like I may have to try the 135 times 8. I'm going to go ahead and erase this work just so that I have more room. When I multiply this out, 8 times 5 is 40. 8 times 3 is 24 plus 4 more is, it was 24 plus 4 more is 28. 8 times 1 plus 2 more is 10. There we go. So we multiplied this by 8 and I got 1080. When I subtract, I have a 0. So now I have $8. Let's go ahead and try one of the ones down here where we have a couple of different operations that we need to do. So we're going to use the order of operations. I'm going to rewrite that here for you. We want to do parentheses, exponents, multiplication and division go together left to right, and addition and subtraction go together left to right. If you need to pause the video so that you can keep this work written down, go ahead and do that, but I'm going to erase it. Now let's look at number 8. I'm going to work with just the parentheses first. I have 9.2 minus 4.9 divided by 7. Now, according to the order of operations, I do want to do the parentheses first, but I have to look at the multiplication and division, which is just this part, the division. So I'm going to say 4.9 divided by 7. I'm going to bring up that decimal, and then I'm looking at 7 can't go into 4, but 7 can go into 49 7 times. That's 49 with 0 left over. So now I'm going to take this right here, and I'm going to have 9.2 minus 0.7. So now I'm going to stack that, and when I stack and I add and subtract, I line up the decimals. So I'm going to have to borrow, and I'll have 12 minus 7 is 5. I'm going to bring down that decimal, and 8 minus 0 is 8. So that gives me my parenthesis for number 8. I have 8.5. I still need to do 36.4 plus 8.5. And I'll add down 4 plus 5 is 9. I'm going to bring down that decimal. 6 plus 8 is 14. And 1 plus 3 is 4. So for number 8, I have 44.9. Again, I'm going to have you pause this if you need to keep these notes out. I'm going to do one more of these problems here so that you can see another example, but I'm going to erase the work on the side. So go ahead and pause if you need to, and then come back. And we're going to look at number 9. So 9, I have 16 divided by 2.5, and I have 3.2 times 0.043. So I have that division and the multiplication, so I'm going to start with the division of 16 divided by 2.5. Now, when I divide by a decimal, I don't want this decimal space, so I'm going to have to multiply by 10 to get 25 on the outside, which means that I also need to multiply by 10 on the inside, so I'm going to have 160 divided by 25. So let's go ahead and work that out. 25 goes into 160 7 times. And I'll go ahead and do the multiplication here for you. It may only be 6. Let me double check. But 7 times 5 is 35. 7 times 2 is 14. 175. I was wrong. We'll multiply by 6. Let me erase that. 7. When I multiply by 6, 6 times 5 is 30. 6 times 2 is 12. So I have 150. And that's with the 6. And I subtract. And I'm going to actually add a decimal and a 0. And I'll bring down that 0 to have another 100. 25 goes into 100 4 times. 4 times 25 is 100. And I'll have a remainder of 0. So I have 6.4 right here. And then I need the 3.2 times, and it's 0.043. I only need 2 of these decimal spots though, so I'm just going to use the 4 and the 3. And I know that I have 3 decimal spots here, and I have 1 decimal spot here, so I'm going to need 4 decimal spots. So I'm going to make myself a little note. So that when I multiply this out, 3 times 2 is 6, 3 times 3 is 9. And bring down a 0, 4 times 2 is 8, 4 times 3 is 12. So I have 6 plus 0 is 6. 9 plus 8 is 17. 1 plus 2 is 3. And 1. And now I remember that I have 4 decimal spots here because of this number I had 3. This one I had 1. So I'm going to move this 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to have a 0.1376. 0.1376. Now, this little subtraction symbol goes down there. So I'm saying 6.4. So I have to line that up. 6.4 minus 0.136. Now, when I add and subtract, I line up those decimals, which means that I have to have the same number of digits. So I'm going to add a bunch of zeros to that number. Now that I'm subtracting, I'm going to say I need to borrow here, which means that this 400 is going to turn into 399. 10 minus 6 is 4. 9 minus 7 is 2. 9 minus 3 is 6. 3 minus 1 is 2. And I bring down that decimal. 6 minus 0 is 6. So when I get all this subtracted, I have 6.2624. So hopefully that helps. I know this is a lot of work for some of the small problems. So your homework here, I'm going to go ahead and let's make this. We won't have to do this page. Let's just do page 59. Okay, let's just do page 59. So number 1 is already done for you. Go ahead and make sure that your work is shown easily. So if you do not have enough room on this piece of paper, make sure that you use a separate piece of paper so I can see all of your work.